Hey, what's up? It's a interview week and I have a birth story for you guys. Look, I would love to bring in really fun, beautiful birth stories, and I'm sure I will, but for some reason I don't get a lot of them. And when I invited Casey to come and talk to me and interview me, honestly, it was more about what she is doing in the birth space when it comes to supporting mothers in postpartum, which obviously I do believe, and you probably too, that we are lacking in that as people in general, and especially in the United States. How are we supporting our women? So I wanted to bring Casey on to really talk about this movement, because she's not actually like professionally in the birth space, right? She graduated and she got her bachelor degree in psychology and a master's degree in forensic medicine. So, I mean, she is in the space, but not the birth space. And what she got from her own birth experience was this catapult into what she saw was missing in as for women and mothers in this birth postpartum space. So she actually wrote a book, and I was like, who goes and writes a book when they have a crazy birth story? This lady. And I actually just fell for her. She's amazing. She's so funny. We totally clicked. So we actually had a great conversation, and then I invited her back. I was like, okay, so what are we going to talk about? And she's like, well, I want to give my birth story. What motivated me to write a book? And then, of course, we can get into birth trauma and lack of support for mothers and healthcare gaps and awareness. Obviously, that's what I do here at BirthLink. So I was like, what? You want to tell me your birth story? I love it. I'm all about birth stories. It's not all bad, you guys. It's not, I don't think I need to do a, what is it called? Trigger warning. Okay, but I guess this is my trigger warning. If you do not want to have any trauma stories whatsoever in any aspects, move on. There's so many other episodes that you can go listen to if you haven't already. But if you want an amazing birth story that had just, and what she took from it and how she decided to make change, then you definitely want to listen. So this is the story with Casey King. And just so you guys know, if you want to find her, she's at Alchemy of Motherhood on Instagram. You can go to Alchemy, that's ALCHEMY Motherhood on IG. And it's alchemyofmotherhood.com if you want to find her. Just so you know, I want to give that right in the beginning. The links are in the show notes as well. All right, guys, let's get into the story. Welcome, Casey. Welcome to the BirthLink podcast, presented by My Friend's a Nurse. I am your host, Colette Colliker, a high-risk labor and delivery nurse right here in sunny California. I'm also an OB certified specialist, birth educator, lactation expert, and mother of 2 beautiful daughters. I am passionate about guiding you through the miraculous journey of pregnancy and childbirth, using evidence and history and asking the reason why. I have some incredible medical friends and colleagues, and we're all here to help you navigate this often overwhelming birthing hospital system in the United States. My goal is to gain trust in birth, improve this system, and provide some valuable insights. Let's make this journey a little less daunting and a lot more joyful. Let's get into it. Hey, Casey, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I know we were chatting a little bit before we started recording. I am just so excited. I know we had a pretty long call before a few weeks ago, so I got to hear your birth story and your mission and what you've accomplished. So I couldn't wait to have you on to tell our listeners your story as well. And I was like, how am I going to start this? And I was like, some women, they take their birth stories, and it could be a great birth story. It could be, have those micro traumas. It could be a full-fledged traumatic event, and they bottle it up and they put it in their pocket, and they're like, you know what? I'm just going to move on and forget that ever happened. Some women become doulas or birth educators. And you, my dear, went ahead and wrote a book, a full-on book.
Yes.
And created this amazing community on Discord, which I hope you promote as well. of women that can support each other, because we both know the lack of support for women, especially in postpartum. So I just have to applaud you. I think it's absolutely
Thank you.
amazing that you took, like, just the bravery and courage to take it on and transform your birth. And look, I want you to tell your birth story right now. I had you come on to tell a birth story,
Yes.
but I won't, like, if for any listeners that don't want to hear about a traumatic birth, maybe this isn't for you, but it's also not just like a traumatic birth, but how you can empower yourself and, change the narrative a bit. And then, take these stories. I hope you're here to listen and take these stories as a guide, maybe a little bit of a warning, and know and understand that you have a support team, a community around you, and you have resources. So maybe start and join these communities before you have your own birth story, whether it's good or bad or whatever it is. We all have one. So please, Casey, I think I've spoken enough. I have to start with the birth story, and then I'll ask some questions and guide you along.
Sure. So mine started, so my son is now 19 months. So this was in 2023, June. And I am geriatric, as they consider in the medical field, because
Awful. I
awful,
hope we
awful.
expired that name by now. I
We
think
need to.
yeah.
I was like, wow, all right. So
I think we went back to AMA. I think it was a collective feminine nay on that one.
yeah, I was like, geriatric, that's great. It was in all my paperwork. I remember laughing with my best friend. I was like, it says geriatric. She's like, no, it doesn't. I was like, yes, it does. It says geriatric on my papers.
No, we, as a nurse, we refuse to say that word. We're
Yeah.
like, my patient is absolute. That's my great grandmother.
Isn't that crazy? It's so crazy because I didn't feel geriatric. I felt young still. So I was 2 weeks early with my son, which I think is not likely when you're older. That's what I heard. But 2 weeks early, not a big deal. And I'll never forget, I woke up, it was like 1:30 in the morning. It was like a thunderstorm outside. And I felt this like weird trickle. And I'm like, what is this? I'm waiting for like an explosion that you see in the movies, this gush of water hitting the sidewalk. I'm in labor. And so as I begin to realize as it continues, it was my water breaking, and my husband and I head to the hospital. And it was a night of thunderstorms, which is almost like a premonition of how my experience was going to be. That's how I look at it now. So we get to the hospital. The birth unit is just swamped, packed. So they had to put me into a triage room, and I had to wait there. I think it was about 4 hours, honestly. I had to be in that room, and my contractions were terrible. They were one after another, no break. I'm half naked on this like doctor's rolling stool, laying over the bed, right? Screaming, crying, clawing almost at the sheets. I'm in so much pain. And of course, looking back, I was like, why, from what I've seen in social media movies, you have this break, right? You have a contraction, you have this break. I never had that. The labor and delivery nurse told me later that I had dilated so quickly that is why I didn't have any reprieve in between all of those contractions. So that started setting the stage, and then the power goes out because of the thunderstorm. So, so it's all set in the stage of like the birth trauma,
mouth is
right?
all dropping with I'm like, I heard the story and I'm still like, what? Okay, go on.
Yeah. So finally I get admitted into a labor and delivery room where I begged for an epidural. So they couldn't give me one prior to that. So for that 4 hours, I was in.
Why was that? Do you know the reason?
I think they just said because I needed to be in that room. And me, not a nurse, not an advocate at the time, I was like, okay, I'm laying, what do you say? Makes sense. And I trust you and all of this. So I'm in pain, felt like I was dying, get an epidural. Life is fantastic, as we know, feeling great. And I was able to take a little bit of a nap, which was awesome. And then so at one point they ran into the room and they just like started repositioning me, not telling me anything, just like moving me around, right? And I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And they said they didn't like the baby's heartbeat the way it looked how I was laying, so they moved me, which was better. I was like, all right. And I think it was 7:00, around 7:00, when we're like, okay, we're going to push now. It's like, all right. So 2 hours goes by of me just pushing as hard as I could. It was horrendous. They turned the epidural and Colette, what's it called when they turn the epidural down when you like to actually push so you could feel the contractions?
Just turn the epidural down. I
Yeah.
don't think there's a word.
Simple. So that was painful because I think they lowered it too much, where it was like,
or turned it off. Sometimes
yes. Oh God. They did something because it was horrendous, the pain. So my doctor at the time, who I barely knew because I had to meet all different doctors at the practice while I was pregnant, which I think is almost like standard now in a lot of OBGYN offices. So I didn't really know who she was. I only saw her twice that night. Once when she came in to tell me I needed a C-section, and then the second when she was actually performing it. So she came in, it was, I think, around 7 p.m. that night, and was like, you need a C-section. Your pelvic bone is too small. And I was like, okay. I think I was just kind of godsmacked because I didn't really have a reaction there. I was terrified, of course, because I didn't realize it now, but looking back and writing in my book, I just realized, like, I feel like my body failed me, right? Where I was like, this is the most primal, natural thing, and I couldn't do it. So they were getting me ready for a C-section, and as they're again, I can't even remember that part, honestly, like, too well, but I just remember rolling in the bed, just in complete like disbelief that this is happening, because it's not how I envisioned it. My expectations were to naturally give birth, cradle my son afterwards, breathe, relax. So we get into the operating room, must have been close to 10 at that point, I think. Yeah, because 7 I was pushing for like 2 hours, and then I had to get the C-section. So, and nothing was emergent. There was no emergencies. Everything was okay. It wasn't like, oh, the baby heart rate's dropping. Nothing like that. I just hit the 2-hour push limit for the hospital policy. So that is why I needed to go in there.
But she gave you the reason that your pelvis is too small, and that's why.
Yes.
Okay.
And now I look back and I'm like, could you tell that? Maybe, I guess. I don't know. I was more thinking like, I think Pennsylvania is the highest malpractice lawsuit, like, state, I think, or one of the top ones. And so they're very, very strict, I believe, about those policies and adhering to them in order to avoid any lawsuits. So, I'm getting prepped for surgery. I'm in the surgery. My husband's not in there yet because they let him in like right before they start, right? So they're getting me prepped, and I'm just laying there, my arms outstretched. I always say, like, I felt like I was Jesus on the cross, right? Arms outstretched. My husband finally comes in. I'm still kind of in disbelief, and he's standing there, and it's almost like I had this tunnel vision because I had a full-blown panic attack as they were starting it. So the anesthesiologist leans over me and he says, I'm going to turn up the epidural. You might not feel your diaphragm. And I'm like somebody like me who has control issues to begin with, right? I'm like, what? What does that even mean? And then when he did that, I knew what it meant. It was the wildest feeling. It felt like I wasn't breathing, even though I knew I was. But like not feeling your diaphragm, it's just crazy. You would think, well, you can still breathe. What's the big deal? But it's such a wild thing to experience. And I was
don't
sitting
miss
there,
it till it's gone.
Yeah. You're like, oh, this really actually does something. Wow. Diaphragm's important, huh? So
I didn't even know we could feel our diaphragm.
Yeah, like I'm telling you, I swear he like turned it up too high because I'm like I was numb from like my chest down. It was crazy. And I'm laying on the table, and my husband is watching because he was a surgical assistant before he was a cop, and he like likes all that stuff. So he's watching the process. I'm laying there, and I have this full blown panic attack tunnel vision where I just kept saying over and over, I can't breathe, because it felt like I couldn't breathe, right? Even though I was breathing. So the doctor, the woman performing my surgery, says to me, if you're talking, you're breathing. Very curt. So I'm laying there, and then I mean, it was amazing. They started me around 10, got my son out, stitched me back up. Must have been 10:25, 10:30. I mean, it was just they do this a lot, right? Like I couldn't believe how quick this entire process was. Yeah. I mean, a lot, right? I honestly. So about maybe a minute or two before the procedure was over and I was, stitched up and everything, the anesthesiologist bends over. He's like, do you want me to give you something for your anxiety? I'm like, yes. And then at that time, it didn't even matter, right? Because it was over. But from basically 10:05 for a solid 20 minutes. I'm sitting there, full blown panic attack, and nobody is even. And again, who knows? I wasn't screaming, I can't breathe, but obviously the doctor heard me. So go in the recovery room, and then, God, I don't even. So yeah, by the time I went into the actual postpartum room, which was very, very unclean, very just disheveled looking, not nice. Labor and delivery room was nice, comfort, beautiful, wood colors. You're going to this room, it's like this gray blue chip paint wall, like yellow bed. Like, it was just terrible. It was a terrible room. And the nurses were trying to give me my son. And I was like, no, like, I just have been up for 2 days straight, pretty much. Can you put him in the nursery so I can sleep for like 5 hours, maybe, So they did that. But so I was in the hospital for 3 days. And those 3 days, the daytime was okay. The nighttime, the nurses were inexperienced. They were non-compassionate. I was just another patient, a very busy night, right? And the last night I was there, they actually didn't come in my room at all. I had to remind them that I needed my pain meds. So there's like a bunch of other little details that I'm not going to go into. So I get discharged on a Friday and get home feeling great. So I scheduled an in-home visit the next Wednesday, which is about 5 days later, July 3rd, I believe it was. And I'm feeling, I'm swollen, but that's just normal. That's what they tell you. You're swollen or you're normal. Nurse comes in, checks the baby, checks me. Okay. Then she takes my blood pressure and it's 149. She says, I was like, isn't that kind of high? Again, not a nurse, right? But I was like, that's a little high, 149, right? She's like, well, the office, we don't need to call the office unless it's 150. So I'm like, okay, trusting that this nurse knew what she was talking about, right? Come to find out later that having a blood pressure of 140 is considered mild preeclampsia, right? I was at 150, which is almost really high.
Especially from coming of you didn't have any high blood pressure. So
Exactly.
I just want to point out before that. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Point that out. My blood pressure prior to pregnancy and during pregnancy and right after pregnancy was perfect. Absolutely
so for
perfect.
you, that 149 was elevated.
Elevated. Yeah. And my cardiologist even said anything that's like 135 and starting to get over for postpartum is dangerous, right? Anybody. So that's the other issue is everybody thinks it's a rare situation. It's not rare anymore. It's really not. Postpartum preeclampsia is not rare. So the nurse comes, says all that. I call my friend who's an ICU nurse and she's like, oh, no, you have to call the OB. That's too high. And I'm like, all right. So I get in. So they tell me to get an at-home blood pressure monitor. I go CVS, grab one. I'm not taking my blood pressure, right? I'm sitting there, one reading was like 176. I take it like straight away right afterwards. It's like 152. So I'm not doing it correctly. I'm doing something wrong. So I called the office again and I said, hey, can I just come in and just have a nurse take my blood pressure so I could put this to bed, right? So they had a Friday appointment. So I go in Friday morning, go in the office, 160. She said, the nurse practitioner looks right at me. She's like, you need to go to the ER. So I get in a car by myself because I have no idea, right? She doesn't say to me, hey, did you come by yourself? Is your husband here? Is your partner here? You might not want to drive. Nope, never said. So I drive to the ER myself. Still don't really have any idea what's going on because nobody explained to me, oh, postpartum preeclampsia can cause seizures, right? Can cause a stroke. HELP syndrome, hey, don't drive by yourself or make sure you have somebody. So I go to the ER, I walk in, they take me back right away once I tell them I'm postpartum high blood pressure. And when they took my reading then, it was at 190. Oh yeah. Terrifying, right? And the nurse, she was great, the nurse in the ER, because I was like, that's scary high. And she's like, and like her face, you could almost see like a fleeting look of concern, right? And if I wasn't looking, I wouldn't have caught it. But I was like, great. So that made me more nervous. I go back into a room. They give me, I think it was labetatol twice. Yeah, twice, right? Doesn't touch my blood pressure. My ICU nurse friend came, met me at the ER because I was like, I don't want my husband here with the newborn. And we didn't really have help for somebody to watch the baby being like basically a week old, right? So she came and she told me, she's like, I can tell you right now, you're probably going to be admitted and get on a mag drip. And I was like really hoping that wasn't going to happen. But I got a third dose of that, and that actually almost made me pass out. So eventually they ended up obviously admitting me. So I go in and I go back to the postpartum ward where I just was literally a week earlier. And now I'm confined to a bed for a minimum of 12 hours for the the magnesium. So I can't move, and you feel like you have the flu pretty much. Yeah, it's awful. It's like you're waiting in cement if you want to like move, it's
You're
terrible.
hot and like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
And you're like tired, but you can't sleep. And it's just very weird. It's a very weird feeling. So luckily, and I don't know if this is lucky, but I was only on the mag drip for 12 hours. So the next day, Saturday, they discharged me in the afternoon with a blood pressure reading of 140. And they say, call a cardiologist on Monday. And I'm sitting here at I'm 41. What do you mean call a cardiologist? I have no idea.
Fixed it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't even fixed, right? Because it's still a mild case of postpartum preeclampsia at 140. So I was on, was it pericardia? I forget the actual.
Pericardia.
Yeah. I eventually was prescribed that and put on that. Yeah. To regulate my blood pressure. So after being discharged and coming home and then being on blood pressure meds for about like 3 months, 6 months after delivery. Now, mind you, I had no idea I had birth trauma. I had no idea, what was going on. I had all this rage, which I think some of it's relatively normal postpartum, but I think a lot of it stemmed from my issues.
Common. I wouldn't say
very
normal,
common.
But common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then anxiety. So at one point, my husband was like, I think you need to talk to somebody. I was like, yeah, I think you're right. So I started therapy, and thank God for that. And that's when I kind of realized, looking back, I was like, oh my God, like what I went through is not normal and it's not okay. Like it's by any means. So when I started therapy, I said to myself, what can I do? What can I do to reach other mothers? Right. Because what I was finding out is a lot of moms feel like they are alone. A lot of moms have went through this and maybe don't realize it. A lot of moms, and isn't just birth trauma, it's even the mental illness postpartum, right? There's such a stigma in society about mental illness to begin with, but especially postpartum. And moms are also scared. If I say something, they'll take my child away. If I say something, people will think I'm crazy, right? And a lot of these mental illnesses are common. They are, and they're becoming even more common. So I said to myself, what can I do to try to reach moms to like help them, right? Help them understand what they're going to go through. Because me personally, when I started this journey of pregnancy, I was like, oh, it's just going to be like 2 days where it's just horrible, right? Horrible pain, won't sleep, the worst. No big deal. Then we're over it. Not really realizing the psychological component to it, right? Which isn't just birth trauma or mental illness. It's relationship shifts. It's losing your identity. It's so many different things that people don't talk about, right? And I want to normalize the messy. I want to normalize this because I see a lot of moms, and a lot of moms that I speak to struggle in all these different areas. So I wanted to start a community, and I wasn't quite sure of what I should do. And I have used Discord previously, and I really, really love the platform. So I thought, let me start a Discord community. Let me go on like Peanut and Reddit and just kind of invite people to it, word of mouth, to have this community where, moms can come in here and talk about the hard stuff, and I'm also very big about self-care. And I believe a lot of mothers need to invest in self-care, right? Forget the mom guilt. Forget I don't have time. Do your best, even if it's 5 minutes, because you have to be okay for everybody else to be okay.
And that shouldn't be just taking a shower. A shower doesn't count. No. Okay, guys.
That's what I said to my husband. I said, a break to go to Giant is not a break. Okay.
Right.
If I'm doing errands, it's not a break. It's like one more thing I have to do in the day. But so in my Discord, in my community, I try to do like wellness activities too, just so, and I know, listen, we're moms, we're all busy, right? But I try to have this in there and have this, these resources. There's also other resources for moms to look at, because it's another thing. I don't think that moms are given a lot of information postpartum, right? You have all this attention in your pregnancy, labor, delivery, then postpartum. It's like once you're discharged, that's it. See ya. That there's no gap. There's such a big gap there. And I just feel like it's my passion now to do what I can to bridge that gap. And that's why I wrote my book, because I'm just like determined to get this in expectant mothers, seasoned moms, healthcare worker, social justice study, like anything to reach as many people as I can. Because this book, it just covers everything. That's kind of what I want to do. I wanted to cover all the different aspects of not only birth trauma and the psychological component, but also, hey, this is normal motherhood. Intrusive thoughts are common and they're normal. Almost like, I think it's 70 or 90% of moms have that, right? Can
Right.
we normalize this for,
Yeah.
like, so that's what started my passion, was just my experience and just seeing others struggling. And I just want to try to reach as many women as I can.
That's amazing. And like I said, like some women are like, and I told you about the story of the mastermind retreat I was at, and how some of the mothers are like, their kids are 20 years old or 11 years old. And they're like, I feel like I'm still holding it, and I had no idea until I started hearing other women talking about it, that I'm still carrying my birth and trauma. And some of the births, even if they're completely mild sounding or they went smoothly, it's still such a huge transition from being your old self, doing your, I'm a career driven and I got married, I fell in love, or maybe it's just like a one night stand. Who cares how you got pregnant? You went from who you were to now you're literally growing a human being inside of you. Your hormones are going berserk, and you're trying to figure out, what's normal, what's not normal, and do the right thing. And all you want to do is figure out who you can trust and who you can't trust. And, it's overwhelming, the whole process of becoming a mother and transitioning from being pregnant and doing that. And then all of a sudden the baby's gone and you're empty. And now what? And now I'm like, okay, here's your baby. Like, can I have a minute?
Yes. Can I have a minute to pivot? And that's the thing. Like, and I think social media
I
is
have
such
a
a
little
detriment.
rage now.
Yeah,
I'm a little
I'm a little
irritated.
angry that I can't get a shower. So, like,
the baby just needs me all the time.
I know, can't have 2 minutes. It's just so funny, because I look at, and I'll say this all the time, with social media, I think is such a detriment, because when I know when I was pregnant postpartum, you're just seeing these reels of women that look like they have it together. And listen, if they do, God bless. But I think the majority of women don't, right? And like, we need to see that. We need to see the times at 3 o'clock in the morning when you have an intrusive thought where you're holding your baby and you feel like you're the only person in the world experiencing this, when you're not, and it's just this huge pivot that some women have to do in their lives after a baby. It's just, there's no help there. There's no guidance. And that's what I hope to help do, just to try to guide and help as many mothers as I can.
Same, girl, same.
Yeah, I know.
You were like, oh, I had a friend that ICU nurse, and I wrote down, like, good to have a friend that's a nurse.
Yeah. My
Call
friend's
me.
a nurse.
Text me. I'll be there.
Listen,
for
it
you.
really is.
I would have been like, get your booty
Yeah.
to ER right now. I would have said the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, no,
good for you
great.
for reaching out for her, and that's advocating for yourself at the end of the day. I wrote down so many notes in your story, like from just like the inconsistencies of care that nurses and the doctors give, the lack of explanation, just the shushing and like, just thank me later. Like, I'm doing this for you. You should be grateful and happy. And
don't question.
Don't question. Oh, they hate when you question. Don't you dare. Like, and then also you're trying to trust them, but then every step of the way, they're like, maybe that's okay. Maybe that's fine. Okay, the baby has a decel. What is the real explanation of that? Why is that happening? You're not going to know in the moment things. And, it's just a crying shame. And I really just wrote down, like, so common, and I circled it. Like, I'm so glad that you wrote this book, because honestly, for me as a labor nurse and seeing thousands of deliveries and labors, your story is not like, oh my gosh, this is a crazy story. I mean, some parts might, like, I found quite interesting, like the lights, the electricity went out, and I was like, so dramatic. I was like, oh my gosh, this is, but the rest of it, girl, it's so common. Your story is so real. And unfortunately, what I find most of the time, I'm almost guaranteed every shift to, at least if it's not my patient going through this, to have someone else on that unit going through this every single night. Like, it's too common. And because of that, as the nurses, as the doctors, we're almost like desensitized to it and we're just used to it. So for us to just move you to the OR room and, then move you to PACU and do all these, oh, you have anxiety? Okay, as soon as baby's out, we'll give you some medicine. Okay, what is that going to cause? And it's like, could we just like speak like this is the first time you've done this, but then do it like you've done it 1,000 times? It's, for us, it's why I started having panic attacks when I started seeing what we were doing to women. And I almost started feeling it to my bones, like my nervous system. I won't say I'm an empath, I'm not, I don't know about that, but I just, finally the curtain was lifted and I could see it for myself. And I was like, how
Yes.
are we treating women this way? How are we not explaining? How are we not waiting 2 more seconds to just explain? Because you said it wasn't an emergency.
No,
Like,
and emergencies we understand, right? Like if mine was an emergency situation, I'm not looking for a 5-minute breakdown, right? But mine was not emergent. Mine was like la la la. But you could take the 2 minutes to explain to me, hey, we need to move you because we don't like the way the baby's, or we need to do this, or this is what's happening next. I was also in a teaching hospital that I didn't realize that was my fault. And so I have these random young kids coming in, just doing things, right? Without without really like,
teaching
hi.
hospitals are
Yeah.
the bane of my existence right now because I have to teach OBs, but we are teaching them wrong and we are setting the future up for failure from what have witnessed. And that's where I get the anxiety attacks. Because I've worked at 3 different teaching hospitals, and each time it's too much. And then what happens is these doctors end up becoming attendings and start working at clinics, and then they go work at a non-teaching community hospital, and now the nurses can't say anything to them because they're attendings and their word is the end
Gold,
all
right? Yep.
be all.
Yep.
Like, you're going to get fired if you speak up. So every time, that's why I'm not a staff nurse, because I need the power to speak up. And I've been terminated from a hospital for speaking up. I leave as soon as my contract's over many times, like never looking back. And I'm starting to get to that point where I'm like, okay, I can't just leave. I can't just run away
Yeah.
from it. I can't just like shout at everyone, like, you're doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
You're wrong.
change the
Bye. So,
process.
yeah.
Right. So now I'm kind of refocusing how I'm approaching it to making actual change. So developing ethics committees, using this platform, using my social media. It gets under their skin at first, but I hope the more that people like you and me, and I see an army of birth workers, and not just birth workers, but like yourself, just mothers and women and even doctors, male doctors, being like, this isn't right. And the more we speak up, I feel like that's what's going to cause change. So we have to keep speaking up. So
Oh,
I'm so happy
100%.
that you wrote that book. I have like 2 more questions before
Yes.
you leave. Okay, I have like 20 more questions,
Yeah.
but we'll save some of them because I'm definitely having you back to promote the book once it's done. You said maybe in a year. And so I'll have you back for sure. But one is, you mentioned the community. Oh, first,
Yeah.
your hand alchemy of motherhood, correct?
Yes.
Is it alchemy motherhood or alchemy of motherhood?
Alchemy motherhood.
Perfect. Alchemy Motherhood. The website is Alchemy of Motherhood. So find Casey and then find this community. She's on Discord. I love Discord. I'm starting a community as well, so we can kind of intertwine them a bit, and how important it is to find a community like this. So you're not just
Yes.
relying on social media and the facade of what it could be, but real women, just like our listeners, just like you, just like me, who just are sharing our stories and sharing our tips and sharing our messy hair and, our crazy intrusive thoughts and making us feel more normal. Right. So I just wanted to quickly, that wasn't even a question, but I wanted to shout out what you have going on. Okay, two questions. One is, you mentioned in that Discord group, like the different types of wellness strategies and therapies. Can you give us an example of one of those? I know I'm just like kind of putting you on the spot. Can you think of one right now? If not, it's cool, but
Yeah, no, 100%. So I try to do mindful Mondays, wellness Wednesdays, feel good Fridays. So I kind of give a prompt in each of those days. So for example, like mindful Monday, the power of pause, like take a minute, pause, try to find some peace in the chaos, right? Even if it's 2 minutes. And I invite, the moms to say something or say, oh, this is what I paused about, this is what I talked about. So it can range from all different things. Like another one was Wellness Wednesday about like gut health. So because I'm really big about that, like I believe gut health is definitely linked to a lot of things. So it's a lot of the journaling, the pausing, the mindful thinking, just doing things more mindfully during your week, during your days, and just carving out those small moments that you can and have that wellness. And then once a month, I'm actually trying to do bigger events. And we just got done one, which was the Love Yourself Challenge for Valentine's Day. So it's just,
that's cute.
yeah. So it was a 1 week challenge. And every day there was a prompt saying, like, name one thing that you really love about yourself when it comes to being a mother, right? Because I don't think we celebrate that enough either, about what we've been through, what we're doing day to day. So I try to always incorporate wellness in this because I think we all need it, right? I mean, it's
Oh
important.
yeah, wellness is a multi-billion-dollar
Yeah.
business, right? But it's really simple when it comes down to it, right? It's just affirmations or having a group of women support you and being able to share your thoughts.
100%. Or
Right?
journaling, just if you're not because there's some people that, and we have to remember this too in these communities, that a lot of the moms might not feel comfortable sharing their stories yet. So I do a monthly newsletter, and in that newsletter I try to do a stories of strength, and I encourage the moms in my community to share their story. And so there's a power in shared stories, right? And the more moms that know or can say, I've been through something similar, the easier the hurt and the trauma and all that becomes, right? And then that's like the path towards healing, is like a combination of all of these things.
I completely agree. I like, with my clients, I always finish with a debriefing so that we can really talk through their birth, and it's non-judgmental. It's not me pointing out things that went wrong, even though in my brain I'm like, oh,
Like they
I
did
know
that
the things that
wrong.
went
Yeah.
wrong, but that's not the time or place. It's just a place for one to express what they went through, just like you just did, right? It's as simple as that. And how you can, when you talk about it, you can kind of release it. And sometimes with our friends or our moms or, or even our partner, we can't do that without but them judging us or butting their own advice or opinion. So we kind of like hold back a little bit. But each time, even with the good birth, it comes to tears. It's a release. It's an emotional release.
It
And
is.
then
It
they
is.
smile and they're like, okay. And then they move forward. And then if they come with action, and I always tell them, like, okay, if you come with questions about the birth, then I will be happy to. But sometimes I need a couple of months to do that, right? To accept that something may have gone wrong, or did my doctor said I had a small pelvis. Is that true? Do you think that's true? Like, what happens to my next
Yeah,
baby?
I
I kind
struggle
of
with that. I was like, do I? I don't know. Is that a thing, or is that like
show me the data. Where did you get the
it's like,
measurements?
where'd you figure that out?
Right. It's so rare, so
So
rare.
yeah.
And usually you have to do like an ultrasound, and it's the genetics. Like, did your
Oh
mom?
yeah.
It's a
I
huge
think it
thing.
was just you hit our limit. What can I say, to get a
Totally,
C-section done, right? You know what I mean?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
she's not
usually
going
the
to come
case.
in and say you're expired on a hospital policy.
Right,
You need a
right.
C-section.
Take note of that, you guys, you listeners. Like,
Yes, that's another thing.
please,
Hospital policies. I mean,
if they're coming in with some reason that doesn't make a lot of sense to you, then it might be actually another reason that they're not telling you. And more times than not, it's that big old clock on the wall. I'm telling you, telling you. All right, last quick question. I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit here too, but you wrote a whole book. We'll get into the book next time. But
yes.
So, from your experience and from your writing about it and everything, what is one of the biggest lessons that you took away from your birth experience? Like for your next birth, what are you going to for sure do that maybe you didn't do last time?
Oh, that's a good
I know
question.
it's a big
I'm
one.
like, oh, biggest
It
takeaway.
doesn't have to be the biggest, but an example
Ah,
of a lesson that you can leave us.
God, there's so many things. I mean, a lesson is embracing the chaos in a way, and just being mindful of what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. And I think the biggest thing for me was a lot of mothers think that certain anxieties are normal, certain thoughts are normal, certain experiences are normal, and that's not necessarily true. My biggest takeaway, I have to say, now I'm talking through and thinking about it, is to advocate for yourself, right? I didn't have this information prior. Had I had this information, I'd have been well more prepared to question things, to ask things. And if not, I would have assigned, so to speak, my husband or somebody else, right? My friend who's an ICU nurse, I would have had her in the room and saying, this is your job, please. You have to advocate, because that's the problem. And I remember, Colette, when you said this in our first conversation, is we can say no to anything. And I don't think a lot of mothers know that, right? And even just hearing, I was like, oh, you're right. I can say no, right? So advocating for yourself and for your health, I think, is the biggest takeaway. And yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing for me. I wish I just knew more. And this experience has taught me all of the hundreds of things that we go through as moms, right? Whether it's birth trauma to losing our identity, these things that need to be discussed more, that need to be looked into more and supported more.
And it's so nuanced too. When I ask a question, I'm like, she's gonna say advocating. Because I mean, I look at all the notes I wrote through your story and I'm like, along the way, I feel like you just learned how to advocate for yourself. And writing a book is one of the biggest ways to do that. And you found your voice, is what I always say. Like, so I have a workshop and I'm like, finding your voice, right? It's so hard, even as a nurse. Like, I know all the things, and I still find it very hard to speak up and say no. Like, I went to the dentist and I'm like, well, okay, just do whatever you need to do. And
I
I'm like,
won't
wait a
question
minute.
you.
Like, I gotta speak
It's the
up.
white coat thing. So no.
Yeah, yeah. And they use that to their advantage. And you can say no to anything, and it's not that you should. And that's why doctors, they get on me. They're like, oh, you're telling people to say no to things. No, no, I'm not. I'm saying they can say no. You are making it seem like they can't say no. So I'm just kind of evening the playing field because you're trying to take all the power, but making it seem like you're not, and you're giving them the choice, but the way you're wording it really isn't. So don't get mad at me if I'm just helping them out by letting them know there's a way to communicate with you, like asking the right questions, like making you actually explain what you're doing and why you're doing it. What are the results going to be from that? Like, what is what are we worried about with high blood pressure? What can I look out for that? Oh, dizziness. Oh,
I didn't have any of
maybe
that.
a
Yeah.
seizure. May, oh, do you think I should drive? Like, we're
Yeah.
not asking the right questions because we're just trusting them, and they're not. And really, it shouldn't be our responsibility to have all these questions. They and I know they try. They, as nurses, I'm constantly watching lessons and videos and filling out educational. Yes, I taught them on, and they have 100 boxes we have to clear out. We taught them. No, we didn't. We don't have time for that. Where was it written? Somewhere we handed them a pamphlet and we're like, okay, we taught them. No, we didn't. Like, no. And the doctors are doing the same thing. There's no time for that, right? That's why I created this business, to kind of help bridge that. But yeah, learning how to advocate for yourself and asking the right questions and just communicating. And I hope doctors get on board, and even some midwives and providers and nurses, like, you know, when
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I wish I knew more. Yeah, I wish I knew more. And I think that's the other thing. Now there's other moms out there that are like, oh yeah, I did all research. But like I said, I just think a lot of women just go into it just, all right. physically it's going to suck. I know I'm going to be tired because everybody tells you you're going to be tired. You're like, yeah, I know that. But like,
Yeah. My doctor will tell me
yeah,
what I need to know. Like,
yeah.
I'm just showing up to my prenatals
I
and
can tell you right now in my experience, a doctor, not one doctor throughout my experience told me anything that I needed to do and should do. And I will die on that hill because it was looking back. I'm like, that's insane. That's insane. Like not one doctor along the way said, this is what you should be doing. This is what you should be looking out for. This is normal. This is not nothing, not a word,
and
which
you're
is
at a teaching hospital
in a teaching hospital.
and
Yeah,
a clinic with
exactly.
multiple doctors
Yeah,
who had every
exactly.
opportunity. I mean, it's a
Even
shame.
having that horrible, 6-week follow up.
Right.
There
So even
wasn't.
though we shouldn't,
Yeah.
we do have to take responsibility. At the end of the day, we're the ones going home with the consequences. So it's a shame, but we have to prepare and educate yourselves. Does that mean it's a guarantee that we're not going to have a traumatic delivery, or they're not going to take our, you know, rights away, or it's not going to be, pleasant? No, it's not a guarantee at all. Unfortunately, the system's just too broken, but we're going to significantly lower our risks and be able to understand what's happened at least afterwards, which is huge, I think. So prepare, educate yourself, advocate for yourself, prepare your partner and the people around you.
Have it designated, because you have to remember I think we forget our partners, right? They're going through the experience with us. It's different, but they're also immersed. So if that's the case, then have a friend in there, have somebody you trust in there can advocate for you, that knows what you want, right? Knows as much as they can, and is not scared to question a doctor or a nurse, right?
Yeah. 1,000%. If you're going to hire a doula, really do your due diligence to find out how educated and experienced they are, especially in the hospital setting. If that's where you're going, it's vital. And if they're not that experienced, then you better have someone else. But they have a really good aura and you just vibe with them, then make sure you have someone else in there that does, or you just really do your due diligence when you find your provider. And that's kind of what I do. I coach women through that, how to find the right provider, how to ask the questions. Sooner the better, guys. I have one mama that she's like, okay, well, she was 12 weeks and she's like, I'll wait till I'm 20 weeks. I'm like, no, right now, girl. Like, it's going to start right now, because building your team takes time. And, you're only going to meet your doctor once a month, in the beginning. And, you have 15 minutes with them. So prepare for it. So I thoroughly enjoy this conversation, Casey, and you, as always. I'm still trying to get myself into Discord. I want to join your group, but my Discord thing is funky. I gotta figure it out. I gotta start a whole new account, which I have to, because I'm gonna build my own, and because I love Discord. If you guys haven't gone on Discord, it's really fun because you can get your little side meetings going, and you can have speakers and video chat, and that's all the kids are doing it. So stay young. All right, Casey, I'll leave your contact information, website, Alchemy of Motherhood, and on Instagram, Alchemy Motherhood. Definitely follow her, find her, and join our plight against this medical system and advocating for yourself. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you so much. This was great. Bye.
Thanks for listening, guys. If you want to find Casey, she's on Instagram at Alchemy, ALCHEMY Motherhood on Instagram, or alchemyofmotherhood.com. She also has a Discord group. So if you want to join that, if you like Discord, the link I'm just going to leave in the show notes because I can't even say it. But thank you again, Casey Keene, for joining me, and I hope you come back. I'm going to invite her back 2026 with the release of her book. And I'm just so excited about that. All right. I'll see you guys again next week. Bye. Thank you for listening to My Friends and Nurse presents the Birthling Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it valuable. Before we go, a quick reminder. The information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider for any medical concerns or questions. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Your support helps us reach more people and continue to bring you great content. Until next time, stay healthy and stay informed.